All right, Kim, you're good to go.
All right, thank you so much. Let's call this meeting to order at 5:04 p.m. And first up on our agenda is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
If we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you both. All those in favor say aye.
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 First, is there any other discussion or additions I should have asked? All right, hearing none. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we're opening our grievance hearing and CBA presentation of Coos Bay District's alleged violations of Articles 14.A.1 through 3 and Article 8D1, D4, D5, and G1. And you guys have 15 minutes. And then we'll respond to the allegations, and we'll have 15 minutes, and then we'll have some rebuttals and questions there. And you guys have that in your agenda. Go ahead.
Quick housekeeping. Would you like me to just announce when the 15 minutes is up or just raise my hand on here? Here, I'll raise my hand. Can you see it?
Thank you. And I will unscreen. We do have about 8 people here in the background. Sorry.
I'll raise my hand when the 15 minutes
is up. Go ahead and raise your hand. Again, I'm going to do off screen because it'll be Becky, Rose, and Aaron speaking mostly. Sorry about that visual. I have no idea where that came from.
We're gonna put a slideshow up.
Perfect.
Okay. And then as soon as it's up, I'll get started.
Can you still hear us?
Yep.
Awesome. And oh, perfect. And except for this the wrong window. Wait a minute.
I think you were on the right page. It was just that you needed the tab the others.
Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So window.
And the other one. There we go. Oh, the other one. She meant the other one. The one to the left.
Virtual meetings are really fun. Say share it, please. Or share it.
There we go.
Now let's push share on your screen. That showed the slideshow. Share. Share. Slideshow. Share. Or present slideshow.
Here?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. And you can see our slideshow.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Now, I'm going to go really fast, and I am happy to send the slideshow to you. It's lengthy because we haven't done this before, and I wanted to make sure to include what happened at the earlier levels and clarify everything. So I included everything, just knowing that it would be a document that I would be sharing after we presented. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. On February 12th of this year, I emailed Principal McKnight and Michelle Barton, alerting them of widespread reports of a crisis of disrupted learning at Sunset School. At the board meeting that night, it was reported that we had a schooling crisis with issues around disrupted learning and staff not feeling safe. We made a request for a problem-solving listening session to Superintendent Gardner that night. On 3/7, Superintendent Gardner and Principal McKnight held a listening session at Sunset School.
And my name is Rose Stinson, and this is partly some of what we discussed during that meeting. We are here because we love Sunset. We are a family and have a strong sense of community among our staff and students. On the next slide, we can see our student demographics. At the time that I shared this slide, we had 14 in our SLC program. You can see now that we have 19 plus one more new student starting soon. So our numbers are increasing. We have safety concerns. Violent outbursts are resulting in frequent room clears. Can you switch to the next slide? Dysregulated students are cursing at students and staff, eloping from school grounds, running in the hallways, fighting, and or threatening leaders and staff. We have delayed and inconsistent administrative responses to extreme student behavior, which is impacting student and staff emotional well-being. On the next slide, Officer Scoville visits Sunset School approximately 3 times per week. You can see that I've requested a report which shows that, or we can send you a report which shows how many times Officer Scoville has been to our school. Academic impact, student survey says, I feel everyone in classroom seems relaxed and we are learning. 60.9% of our kids disagree with this statement. You can see that it's also having an academic impact with our current scores. We have the next slide, which shows our social emotional impact. In 2018, can you do the next one? 12.5% of our students reported they felt unsafe at Sunset School, compared to 50% of our students now. And I'll return this back over to Becky.
All right, moving on. So we, with little communication after following the listening session, we decided that we need to take a formal step of filing this grievance. And so we submitted our grievance to Principal McKnight on 3/22. I've heard multiple times from Superintendent Gardner that the language of the grievance was confusing to them. So I'm really going to try to clarify. What I've done on this first slide is the exact language from the grievance, and I will be referring to it with clarification as we go through it. But for starters, we claimed that there was lack of adherence to Article 14A, 1 through 3, Article 8, D1, D4, D5, and G1 regarding maintenance of classroom control and discipline, staff safety, and safe working conditions. Failure to provide essential documentation such as the behavior matrix at the beginning of the school year, and to collaboratively review and revise behavior protocols as required by our contract. Unilateral changes in working conditions resulting in increase in student violent behavior, threats of violence, and disruptive behaviors violating Article 8G, which refers to the push-in model change that came where the requirement to do a push-in model even with our Tier 3 behavior kids is where we felt like we was partially responsible for this crisis. And Article 8G talks about equity from school to school, but we only have one SLC classroom. Further, inadequate safety plans, responses, and support for students returning after major referrals, and a lack of communication regarding students identified for additional support programs like 504 IEPs, as well as insufficient staffing to meet the demands of students with high needs, and a shortage of behavioral health specialists. The remedies that we asked for in our original grievance were that the district superintendent and SPED director convene a meeting with Sunset Middle School stakeholders, including the admin, the teachers, the specialists, the EAs and support professionals, as well as union representatives, to establish clear and actionable protocols for incidents involving student behavior. Further, we asked that the district must ensure equitable communication for students identified for additional support and notify staff in advance of any new transfers, as well as recruitment of additional teachers, hiring of a school site, doubling the number of school counselors, and adding an SLC program to each elementary school in the district to support students in crisis. Now, these remedies that we put in here were somewhat vague. And the idea was that our grievance was going to open the lines of communication and that we would be problem solving solutions together. Unfortunately, we have not felt that has happened. So after filing level 1 response and according to the steps of a grievance in our contract, Principal McKnight called a meeting on 4/11 with only one member of our grievance team And further, the meeting was impromptu. So we didn't feel like there was great communication from our people at the level 1 to clear up any questions maybe from our original written grievance. From there, Principal McKnight sent her written response to us on 4/19, and I've included her response below. I'll refer to some of it, but due to time, I'm not going to read it all. So basically regarding Article 14, Principal McKnight says that we will review, the MTSS team will be included in collaboration with building admin to develop protocols and shared with staff and posted online. At this time, it's hard to say what has occurred because the team has reports that they don't know who the MTSS team is and or who's on it, and it needs to be defined. So as far as we're concerned, that has not happened yet. In regards to Article 8, Principal McKnight shared that she felt that they were in compliance because they practiced lockdown and lockout procedures, etc. However, it's still being reported that the vestibule, there's a door in the vestibule that is broken and not locked. And I'm going to just keep going and again, not read all of this. But I will, of course, answer questions as they come. Principal McKnight, go to the next slide, please. Principal McKnight continues on the second bullet there. On March 7th, Superintendent Gardner held a listening session. Since then, the building principal has scheduled work sessions to review and revise behavior protocols for Sunset School. Those sessions will continue to happen until all Sunset staff have had an opportunity to participate. You'll notice purple is, highlighted purple is to show that areas that we disagree with. We don't believe this has been accomplished as of yet. So in green are extra information. Those meetings are not done, and there has been no communication regarding scheduling the meetings that need to still happen prior to the end of the school year. And as you know, we're very close to the end. Moving on, Principal McKnight says any student who may qualify for supporter services under the IDEA will be decided upon by their IEP team and 504 team. I will designate an individual or individuals to do a review of the CUME file when it is received so that we will have essential information as soon as it is received. Our big question there is who is going to do that? We still have not heard, and so we still have that issue. Next. So with little satisfaction at any progress being made at the level 1 as of the deadline date, we made the decision to proceed with level 2 and forwarded our grievance to Superintendent Gardner on 4/26. Superintendent Gardner and HR Michelle Barton hosted our level 2 meeting on 5/7 and allowed all members that had signed the grievance to attend. We received the response from that meeting on 5/29, and we got lots of promises, but again, a lot of them are being referred to as that they'll be done for next school year. And we, as following the contract procedure for grievances, we don't really know how to address long-term changes. We, as you know, our deadlines come after 10 days and so on. And so not really sure what to do with that, but, much appreciated and up for discussion. But we're going to focus more on what has not been completed yet. So just a couple notes from his level 2 response. He says in his response, he said that he will require Sunset School administrators to hold a minimum of 2 staff meetings prior to the end of the contract year. At this time, only 1 staff meeting has taken place, and another one has not been planned. He says a eloping student protocol specific to Sunset School will be established during those staff meetings. Again, not done. An articulated plan for communicating the disposition of referrals or behavior incidences is not available to everyone as he mentioned there. So the next slide goes on to a lot of the stuff that he's promised for next school year. Again, not really sure how to take that, but much appreciated that they're getting a full-time assistant principal. Weekly hours for classified staff will be increased. And specifically, he mentioned that 3 new EA positions will be hired for students receiving behavior interventions. So again, we'll be looking at those next year or yeah. So moving on to level 3, after, again, at the deadline of level 2, we had to look at where we were and decide where to go next. Because we had such a large team, we did a poll to find out how everybody was feeling, and the majority decided that we needed to move forward with our grievance to the school board, and we did so on 5/24. So in these next couple of slides, I'm going to try to show you what we're still looking for. So in Article 14, it says each school will have a written school-wide student discipline procedure developed by the MTSS team and staff. Again, we don't know if we even have an MTSS team. It says that they be revised collaboratively as needed throughout the year. That's not happening. And the framework, apparently the framework for discipline policy has been given, but it is ineffective as shown by the multiple behaviors that we're talking about and needs collaborative revision. From Article 14A2, it quotes a fast response plan for removing disruptive students from the classroom before the start of each school year obviously did not happen and still has not been implemented. And we want it to include protocols for wandering or otherwise known as eloping students. We only have 30 seconds. Okay, so I'm moving on because we're running out of time.
You have a minute and a half left, Becky.
Okay, thanks. So written response of the action taken on any referral we're still waiting for, as I briefly mentioned. The synergy report is often delayed due to an overwhelming number of referrals. That is, there's a big backlog. As a result, data on behavior referrals is not being reviewed by the PBIS team to determine where changes need to be made in our current systems of support as it should. That's why we felt it was necessary to get data from the Coos Bay Police Department from our records request that showed that they had been at the building 115 times this school year. Staff also needs training on how to access the data at tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 level. I think I've talked about the next slide mostly, except there was some confusion on G1 and what was being asked during that. We were referring to what's not happening from our contract is provide equity between teachers, specialists, and schools. Having only one K-6 SLC classroom is inequitable. Also, with the number of students in that classroom, we need more support. We are feeling like we have been set up for failure. Erin Ralston is here to wrap it up.
Hi, yeah, we would really like to get this grievance resolved. Experience has shown that the current model is not sustainable. And so in this last slide, you'll see a list of items that still need to be resolved. The top one specifically determining our SLC program. We need services on both sides of town that is equitable, and our contract calls for that equity as far as class sizes, but also specialist case loads. And like,
Hey, Erin, I hate to cut you off, but you guys are out of time.
It's still back to the meeting.
Was that your last slide?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
don't put it down yet because
Yeah,
I'm
I was-
still reading it.
I'm like, we could read it while we move on to the next piece.
I'm also going to email it to the school board through Outlook right now. So if you want to refer to it, you may.
All right. Thank you so much for your presentation and descriptions of what has happened so far and where you guys are at. Next up, we are going to have our district response to the allegations, and you will have 15 minutes. Is there a presentation that you guys need to get up there?
Are you asking me, Kim, if we have a presentation?
Yes.
I do not.
Okay. All right. So David, when you're ready to have them go, you can start the time. And
I'm ready whenever you start.
Okay, so Becky, thank you, and all of you who are together for CBEA. I'm filling in for Brian Gardner this evening with our response. Becky, your presentation and Jen Marie and crew was really great. Lot to unpack there, and there's lots of overlapping layers to this. First of all, we just want to acknowledge and thank the board for providing the resources that Sunset has been provided so far this school year. The district, kind of the superintendent's response so far would agree that these long-term changes are hard to address. From the March 7th meeting to the May 7th meeting to today, it has really been difficult to adequately address some of these concerns. Some of these things have, particularly the MTSS team, PBIS behavior protocols. Those are things that have been, are constantly a work in action and fluid in a school and need to be adjusted and looked at. And so it is, there is a commitment from Sunset administration and from the district. And I know by you, school board members, to doing what's right for students and doing what's right for staff and making, the best decisions we can. And so through these various meetings, we have tried to address these concerns. But again, some of them are, and I'm sorry that it has appeared that has been staved off for the future. I think we're doing what we can as we can, adding extra administrative, adding an extra person as far as a licensed help or a classified help. They're almost full-time this school year has already occurred since the March 7th meeting. I know that Principal McKnight has tried to address each of the teams for the for the grade level meetings. We had 5th grade planned. I know I see on the slide that 5th grade was planned. Theirs had to be rescheduled due to substitute availability. And there is a plan to have another staff meeting and do those things. So I can't speak to the communication that's happened between the principals or administrators in the school. I'm not part of that, but I can tell you that this is a concern, that the year-long plan for addressing student behavior is top priority, and that members of, I heard the CBEA mention members of PBIS team. That is kind of one and the same as the MTSS team. Those have kind of morphed. And so, some of these team members and protocols are also have been known by CBEA and established. So there's not lack of entire establishment of some of these teams or communications. So again, we have posted for these EAs. We have retained a full-time administrator in Michelle Boyce. She will be staying with the district full-time next year. We have increased, and the budget will hopefully be adopted by the board soon next week, to increase staff classified hours to help support the staff at Sunset. So there are plans that have been addressed so far this school year, and then also need to continue. This is the work of every school, not just Sunset, to develop these protocols. This is the work that happens in most buildings when an increase in behavior arises. So I'm trying to kind of go through, but we have staff training planned for the week school gets out the following week in a lot of behavior and brain science. We have time scheduled in August for that training. We know that this is a problem that needs to be addressed. And I really do feel like we as a collective have taken these matters seriously. I sat in the board meeting on the 12th and watched that, the emotions come through of what's going on. We spent time in the listening session, over 2.5 hours. We spent time on May 7th at the level 2 grievance, over 2.5 hours listening, and we hear what's happening. And we take it really seriously. And some of this just takes some time, and that's not meant to be a cop-out. It is not meant to be dismissive, but we are trying to address the contract as it is written. And there are parts of it that probably needed to be done better, admittedly, but we're committed to doing that work. I know Shelley McKnight, Michelle Boyce, and also, most importantly, we are going to have a tier 3 classroom at Millicoma. That was part of, the recent discussions and we have posted that position. And we are actually interviewing, hopefully, for that position on Thursday, as a first step. So the district is doing what it needs to do in order to address this in the time frame that we can. And so lots of work left to do. But I think, the assistant principal, extra EA support, SLC on both sides of town, a commitment to these grade level meetings. We realize it may have to happen when school is out, but we're doing what we can as we can. We heard on May 7th that there needed to be a staff meeting about the eloping student protocol. Ms. McKnight incorporated that into that May 8th day, or the professional development day that was forthcoming. And so I think they began the work. It's not completed yet. So many things have been all the way there yet. So, I could say lots more, but I think we're doing what we can, as we can, to address these behavior concerns. The police are there to help us. We appreciate Rob Scoville. We appreciate Coos Bay PD. We appreciate the time and energy that everybody has taken into communicating the needs of Sunset, and it will continue to be a priority.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there anyone else from your side that is presenting?
I think I was the lucky one.
Well, thank you for that. And now it is time for, if you're through with your comments, I believe you didn't run out of time. So if you're through with everything, then we would have our 5-minute rebuttals for each party. Are you going to go ahead and relinquish the rest of your time?
I don't know how much I have left, but yes.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. All right. We'll go back to Jen and Becky and you guys over there, if you guys have any rebuttals or questions.
Yes.
Hey, can we have a couple minutes to discuss, since there's multiple people here?
Sure.
Just give us a few minutes.
Okay. Sounds great.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, I'm gonna go get a sweater. I'm freezing here.
Underline's own words against him. Casey's Terry Moran leading us off at the courthouse tonight.
Hunter Biden walked hand in hand with his wife Melissa into the federal courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware this morning to stand trial.
David, perhaps you can mute people.
Gun law. Minutes later, First Lady Jill Biden made her way.
I got you.
You know, Kim, when you first came on, I saw the background and I thought, oh, what a nice house. I just don't imagine her living in something like that. And then you moved and I noticed it was a background, but
Yes, no, my house is not this tidy. That's why there is a background.
that's why mine's blurred.
David, you didn't happen to be timing how much time that they needed, right?
I did not.
Okay.
In about 3 minutes.
Okay. Let's do 2 more, guys, and then we'll get back to our 5-minute rebuttal. So if you could time that in.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Perfect. All right, go ahead.
So a couple things we're listening to. Biggest thing is, while I know level 4 grievance does not sound appealing, it is still an option to us. And I don't know how we're supposed to decide if we are settled or not with the lack of communication that we're getting. For example, it has not been told to the Sunset people that there is a behavior classroom planned for next year at Sunset at Millicoma. So it seems like that'd be really important information for them to know. I think they'd be interested to hear it. I've heard about it because it's in my school, but that's a different point. So furthermore, with the struggles that they have with maintaining an SLC classroom, specifically the large class numbers, we want to know that there's going to be some class caps on those classes. We can't have 19 behavior kids in one classroom and expect things to be different. It's a big part of the problem. So we haven't heard anything about those numbers, and we would like to hear some specifics. What does the behavior classroom at Millicoma look like next year, and how will it affect Sunset? May 10th, you mentioned that the protocols were started for eloping students, but what's hard to understand is if they weren't finished, why we didn't plan another meeting. There was still time. Now there's not. Today, there was violent behavior in the foyer at Sunset. The teachers are aware. However, there was never an announcement to say that there is a lockout in place, and there should have been. That is not okay. No announcement, no follow-up, no communication whatsoever. It's really hard to think that we're going to move on with this if we can't get those basic things. And that's all I have.
I just want everybody to know that thank you for that extra vice principal support and the extra classified help. But by and large, that extra classified person gets pulled into sub in the classroom. So that kind of takes away from that. We also haven't been given any definite answers on the school-based therapist. Replacing, we've heard that they like having a half-time person. So of course we don't see that posted, and that is a critical missing piece that has made it difficult for us this school year after Councilor Rama left us. I'm currently serving in 2 positions, really, as the counselor and the social emotional learning intervention specialist. So if we can't find a therapist, then I really feel it's important to put me back in a full-time counseling role. So I'm not juggling working with students who have behaviors and then trying to be centered to work with our students who have needs at tier 1.
David, is there time left or are they done?
About a minute and a half left.
Okay, go ahead, you guys.
Anybody? Do you want to try to finish up your statement?
I would just really like to see that we get answers in writing to the SLC issue. The equity piece that our contract calls for. Our contract calls for equity across the district, not only in regards to class size, but specialist caseload. So we need programs to support our tier 3 students with equitable caseloads on both sides of the town. Again, Brian Gardner even stated that 8 to 10 students is, the most you want to have in those behavior classrooms. So having one SLC program and with our numbers over there is not going to work. So there's going to need to be some discussion on, okay, how do you make those 2 SLC programs equitable in each building? We'd like to see staff meeting number 2 held so we can collaboratively problem solve around behaviors and safety at Sunset. Prior to the end of the school year, we would like 5th grade team, which includes myself and our SLC certified staff member, Jasmine Hill, to have our meeting. I feel like we've been left out of the process and we've been a big part of this. Is that my time?
I believe so, yes. We just want to be a part of that collaborative process. We do realize that it started and appreciate Shelley and everyone trying to come forth and work with us, as this has been an overwhelming and fastly developing scenario, especially in a mental health desert for children.
Thank you so much. I gave you a little bit extra time because I interrupted asking about the time. So now it's time for, I guess, Michelle, you got the lucky card for responding. You got 5 minutes.
Okay, so as far I just tier 3 classrooms. So I did post for that position yesterday. That notification went to all staff, and I apologize for that not being more succinctly communicated to the Sunset staff. We have been diligently trying to kind of keep the wheels on this bus going between 2 superintendents right now, and communication and who's disseminating what has been a little bumpy. But Mr. Roberts has known, Shelley McKnight has known that we've been doing this. And so the delivery of that information to Sunset probably got lost in translation, but the position was posted. And as far as the caseload for SLC, we can't have hard caps. That's just going to not happen because we need to serve students on IEPs as they come to us. And then we have to figure out the staffing that goes with it. So can we problem solve the staffing? Yes, but we can't cap students who have needs identified through IDEA. So that is one thing that we just don't get to choose our customers. We get to, we have to serve the kids that come with us with all needs, and then we do staffing accordingly. The therapist, I believe that the reason why you haven't seen a posting for a therapist is in the past, we have contracted or been granted therapy services through Coos Health and Wellness. And I do believe that since Rama is gone, we have secured, I think, a half-time therapist for Sunset. I believe Coos Health and Wellness is trying to get us more. And so that is still in the works. What the SLC program at Millicoma is going to look like, we are also still working on. We have a new superintendent coming. We haven't had a chance to meet as a staff to have those lengthy conversations that will take. But the plan for now is to divide first by attendance zone, and then define and disperse students accordingly. We've bussed from zone to zone. We will continue to do that. We will probably be meeting on a case-by-case basis, but the plan for distributing those students is in the works. And we recognize that having the continuity of service in their feeder schools is really important. We will I'm not the supervisor of our administrators, and I want to make that really clear that I'm representing our district, but I'm not the supervisor of our administrators. And so, I can't tell people what to do, but I can encourage that we have open communication and that CBEA continues to have open communication with Shelley McKnight and Michelle Boyce, and that more communication and meetings happen. I think both sides being open to those meetings is really critical right now, and being open to problem solve. And so hopefully we'll do that. As far as lack of communication, again, I'm not going to pretend to speak for the principal of the building and about the protocols, but we can encourage that those protocols be defined. And so I will encourage our superintendent to do that and help establish those systems and have a staff meeting. So again, we recognize that there's a lot of work to do ahead, but we're committed to doing it with you.
All right, thank you.
We're going to go into closed session. Oh,
All right, we're up to board questions. So let's open it up to the board to ask any questions. Diane.
So I just want to get some clarification here, because I heard the number 19 students. So in an SLC classroom, do all 19 of those students have PBIS? And what is the staffing ratio, or what is the staffing in that classroom currently?
I don't know if I understand your question in its entirety, Diane, but are all of those students full-time in SLC? Is that what you're asking?
Do they all have, so is everybody in SLC, do they all have a positive behavior intervention?
An IEP?
Not necessarily an IEP. So do they have a positive behavior, like basically support plan? Because I believe it was Becky said there was 19 in SLC. So do all of those folks have a
behavior plan? A behavior
Yes.
intervention plan
Yes.
is what you're asking about?
Yes.
I would assume that, and we know how that goes, that all students who are receiving services in the SLC, one, have an IEP or are in referral, but they should have an IEP, and that behavior plans are the responsibility of the teacher in that program to develop and adapt as needed.
But it's not necessary, like for everybody who has an IEP, if there's 19 people, it doesn't mean that everybody has.
Oh, if they're in
positive
SLC,
support
if they are
plan.
receiving SL services for a behavior plan, yes,
Then yes.
they should have some sort of behavior plan, yes.
Okay, thank you.
we want to comment on staffing there too. That's where it's very overwhelming to support the 19 students or the several students. Yeah, one teacher.
One teacher, 4 EAs is what we show.
And some of those students need or require one-on-one support.
I think it's three of them.
Sorry,
One full-time FTE licensed and 3 EAs.
3 EAs. Sorry
Oh, yeah.
about that. Yes.
And two of the students are one-on-one, I believe.
I'm first of all, I don't think that our data is the same. I don't have that in front of me, but I do not believe you have 19 students actually enrolled in SLC. I don't know that to be true.
Sorry, that
Okay,
is projected for next year.
Okay.
Okay.
Currently, I do not believe you have 19 students enrolled in SLC.
Okay,
That-
yeah, we're going to stick to what
Correct.
is this year, right? Diane, that was your question. What this
Well, I
year?
just heard the number 19, so I didn't know if it was referenced, and I guess I was just confused. I didn't realize that an SLC was like a behavioral classroom, basically. So I was just curious if everybody in there had a plan, a positive behavior support plan, and then just kind of what the staffing looked like for however many students they currently have.
So how many students are there right now?
I'll have to email you that answer tomorrow. I don't know that right this second.
Do we have anybody that knows?
we've been told 19, so that's what we
Oh,
stand by.
currently this year,
Yes.
but there's nobody that's teaching
You
in
said
that
that was a
classroom.
projection.
No,
Yeah.
that is the projection. I am looking for the numbers. I'm not sure if we have an exact number. It is
Okay. All right.
So,
Diane, did
so
that answer your question somewhat?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, thank you. Arnie?
So it sounds like there is one certified teacher and 4 EAs. 3 of the EAs, I'm sorry, and 2 of the EAs are individually with one-on-one with kids. So in the classroom, there's really 1 teacher and 1 EA that are available for the rest of them. Is that correct?
It looks like that Shelley is checking the current numbers, and I'm assuming the one-on-one, Arnie, is that required per IEP, I'm assuming?
We generally don't list one-on-one support directly on an IEP. We say, adult response, but we generally don't list on an IEP one-to-one support.
So how is that assessed? Just through the behavior plan?
That would be the correct mechanism for assessing that, yes,
Okay,
from the
so
IEP team.
Okay, so we have a possibility of 19 students in the SLC classroom this year. It could be projected or it could be the number. We have 1 teacher, as Arnie stated, 3 EAs. We have 2 of those students that are one-on-one. Okay, now we
currently have 13 students.
Yep, 13 students. So and 2 of those are definitely one-on-one per their behavior plan. We know that. Is it sure, or is this, how do we know that? Is it?
So I can address that. We have 2 students right now whose behaviors are so violent that we have EAs dedicated to being with them for the majority of the day. One of the students is on an abbreviated day. He's not there all day.
And Board Chair Brick, I think we're getting a little bit too into details about student information.
Exactly.
Or open
Okay,
session.
sorry.
Yeah. The general number of having the 13 students,
Right.
2 that are on one-on-one, and the staffing, I think that paints a picture of what we're looking
Right.
at with about 11 students, 1 teacher, and 1 EA. So
Yeah.
Right, but not all day. That's what I was getting into.
yeah, so we've got
part of
some-
the day, we have a teacher and 2 EAs for the 11 students. And part of the day, we have a teacher and 1 EA because of the supports needed for 2 students.
Okay, thank you, Shelley.
Sure.
So of the 13 kids, they are not in the SLT class all time, right? They are pushed out.
No, they are not. Correct.
How often are they pushed out, or how much time of the day are they generally not in class?
Generally, most of these students are in their gen ed classrooms for most of the day.
Okay.
All right, do we have any other board questions?
So we haven't had a second meeting yet that we have agreed to in the beginning. Is that correct? We only had the 1 staff meeting?
I don't know that there was an agreed second meeting. It was my understanding that our interim superintendent was not interested in having a second meeting. But I could be wrong about that.
I think Arnie was asking about a staff meeting, Shelley, not a group meeting.
Right.
It was my understanding, according to the grievance, the folks who had the grievance wanted a meeting with Brian and Lisa and myself. That was the second meeting. The first meeting was with Brian and myself and you, Michelle. So that's my understanding of what this second meeting is.
No, your staff meetings, that you would have 2 staff meetings to address behavior before the end of the school year.
And I wasn't under that understanding.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. David?
I guess, I'm a little bit not clear on what the purpose is of a level 3 grievance at this point. I mean, I've heard grievances in the past, and there's usually a pretty clear direction for the board, but I don't really hear a good clear direction. And I guess my question is for our CBA reps, please try to help me understand what would be as a valuable outcome. I mean, to me, that largely the district and its teachers and staff are on the same page about the need to move forward and to try to find some solutions. So I don't hear any really disagreement about the need to move forward and try to find things that are effective. I don't really hear any really disagreement about the need to do this in a collaborative fashion, about whether it's always happening exactly the way that it should, whether everybody's participating. I mean, I hear that maybe some of the things have not been 100% done the way that they should, but most relationships are not done that way either. I don't hear there's any disagreement about the need to have additional supports and staff, whether they're EAs or whether they're counselors. To me, those seem in agreement as well. But obviously the reality is, being able to hire those folks, have them well trained, and have them not, having pressed into other duties, sort of like substitute teaching. I mean, those are part of the realities as well. So I guess I'm just not sure, and I'd like to hear, so if the district and teachers are in agreement with these things, where would I as a board member look at reinforcing something that there doesn't seem to be agreement around? I hope that's clear enough.
So could I just jump in for a second about that? Because what I understood from their presentation was that we have a procedure that gives timelines on grievances, and they were running out of time to not get an answer from grievance 2, so they applied for grievance 3, which is what we're doing right now. That has a timeline as well, and if they don't get a written response from us as to what we're going to do in the future, their only response to that is to go to grievance level 4. Am I hearing that correctly?
Thank you, Arnie. That is correct. And the lack of collaboration and the lack of communication has continued since we started this in March. And so at every level, we felt like we had to go further to get more help and support because we were not finding our efforts to be effective.
David, did that answer your question?
I mean, I guess so. I mean, so the clock is ticking, and therefore, you have to move to the next stop because the clock will end if it doesn't keep moving forward. But, when I look at the behavior needs of the district and trying to help young people and their families and us as a district be more effective, it's not going to follow a very quick time frame. I mean, right? I mean, we all know that this is not just a local problem. This is a problem that's throughout many districts in Oregon and throughout the country. So we know that, to try to really see something that's going to be effective is going to take time. And obviously, we've got a real change in district leadership. And so, we've not had a stable superintendent in place. So we don't have some of the investments that are really important to have to move forward. And so I just don't know, like moving forward, how this process is helpful other than it illustrates the things that we already know that we need to do, which is, be collaborative in our process, be transparent, have a process where we identify things that we think we're going to be effective, and then we test them to see if they're being effective as we move forward. So, like I said, it's just hard for me because this process doesn't seem like it's going to take us to be any closer to where we need to get ultimately, and it seems to be, we all know where we need to get to moving forward. And so yes, I could see, Arnie, yes, it goes to level 4, but then we're still at the same, right? The issues haven't changed at all, really, right? Nothing has really changed.
Except who gives the answer at level 4?
Well, the answers, I don't care who gives the answers. The answers are going to be the same all across the board because, the needs are the same, right? The questions are the same. I mean, is somebody going to come down and tell us something miraculous that's going to solve our problems here locally?
Well, I hope not, because as I'm hearing this conversation, both sides are agreeing on what the problems are and how to solve them. I think the problem with the complainants is that they still do not feel they're getting communication. And they've had to come to us to have us say, okay, we'll make sure that you get communicated with. Now, am I misreading that?
I would like to go back to David's question and have you guys respond to that, Jen and whatnot, and then also you can add on with Addie and Arnie, so we get actually a response from you regarding that, David's questions.
Okay, I will do my best to answer David's question. I would say at the end of our slideshow, the resolution slide is the last one, is the ones that we're really looking for. And you'll find on there, like, for example, we need to have that second staff meeting that was promised at level 2. We need, without communication and collaboration, we're not going to make change. Top down is not what we're looking for necessarily. We need to be listened to and be part of the solution. And the last thing we wanted to do was go through this whole process and start the school year with broken promises. And so, we continued to push and to where we are here at level 3. Basically, we want to be told that there's a plan, to deal with the large numbers of SLC, because it did not work this year. Regardless if there's 13 or 19, it was not working. I don't know if you're aware of some of the changes that we went through in the last couple of years, where those students were, we were told by SPED director basically that we needed to push in those students, meaning they needed to be mainstreamed rather than held back into a self-contained classroom with their SLC teacher. Part of that is why we have so many blowouts, is because those kids are running rampant through the building with not enough support to follow them around. But there's been no change in that. And from our understanding, from our legal representation, that is not how it has to be. And so there's possibility for change there, but we haven't heard of any discussion about it. Again, there's plans for a new behavior room to take some of the kids across town, but how many? And Michelle says we can't do a cap because we can't turn those students away. Never would we say turn the students away. The cap would be hire another teacher if the cap goes above, because we cannot have one certified teacher with 19 behavior kids at tier 3. We're going to have the same situation. So these are the kind of things that need to be discussed collaboratively, and that's why we're here. I don't know if I answered your question, and I'd be happy to take more.
David, did that help somewhat?
It did help in terms of helping me understand, specifically, what CBEA is asking for. How to get there is a little bit harder. I mean, it's hard to, it sounds like there's a difference in feeling around what collaboration has occurred, what it means specifically, those things. But no, I do appreciate it. I think that was helpful.
All right. So are we talking about the projection of next year of 19 students in each SLC classroom?
Total students.
Okay. So, okay. That answers that question. Thank you. Just in wrapping up, because we'll end the hearing and then the board will deliberate. Do we have other questions for either side?
I need clarification on what staff meeting the CBA is asking for, because I understood it to mean another one with the superintendent, and Michelle is understanding something different. So I need clarification on what they're asking for.
In the level 2 response from Superintendent Gardner, it says, and let me read it specifically so that I can. It says, so this is from Superintendent Gardner in his level 2 response. So it's possible that communication was lacking. I'm not sure, but he says the district will require Sunset School admin to hold a minimum of 2 staff meetings prior to the end of the contract year. And that was given to us on May 29th.
Shelley,
Okay,
whoever see that?
CBA is requesting that they meet with admin, not
No.
the superintendent, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
basically it says
Oh, it's a staff meeting. We're just talking about a staff meeting.
Staff meeting. Shelley, did you get this? It sounds like it just came out last Wednesday. So we're talking
I'm
like
not,
3 days ago.
I don't think that I did. And so I can work with folks on that.
And you guys, it did come on. I was wondering about that because his response came after you had filed the level 3 grievance. Is that correct? You filed on the 24th and his response came out on the 29th of May, just last week.
I believe the level 3 was filed after his response.
Yeah, I believe so too. I've got some dates wrong, it looks like, but it would take me a minute to look into it. If you want me to, I will right now.
No, it's fine. It just was on the slide. It said
We definitely got the level 3 response because I shared it out with the team and we, and they voted accordingly.
okay. So you got that last Wednesday, and since last Wednesday, you've only had 1 meeting, staff meeting.
No.
Our staff meeting was prior to last Wednesday. So
I know. I'm saying Superintendent Gardner sent out his response on Wednesday of last week. So you're saying that there would be 2 staff meetings?
No, this was in the level 2, not the level 3 response.
I had the date wrong and I apologize. It was 5/16 that we received the level 2 response from Superintendent Gardner.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, I was like, okay. So since 5/16, there's only been 1 staff meeting when he said that there was going to be 2.
Correct.
Okay.
Staff meetings that specifically address behavior, yes.
Okay.
They did have a staff meeting last Friday, but it was dealing with other issues.
All right. Specifically, so Shelley, it sounds like that's something that either
needs to be scheduled.
It sounds like it needs to be communicated with you, and that there needs to be something there. Obviously, we do not as the board, we only supervise 1 person. So
sure.
But yeah, that's.
I will do my best to have another staff meeting before we're done at the end of the school year.
Okay, board members, do you have any other questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you to everybody, our administrators, the CBEA, and all of our staff members for bringing and continuing to bring these issues out to light. I mean, we hear things in the community, and whenever students or parents complain, but I have heard some things from several of you over the school year regarding the increase in the behaviors in our schools, and unfortunately it's not something that's gotten better at this point, and I'm glad to see that with all of our changes in administration, our superintendents and whatnot, that we have had some progress towards getting this going and making sure that we're not just compliant with our bargaining language for the contracts, but for putting in some real changes that'll help address these problems. And listening to everybody, it sounds like, David, I think you're right. We're all essentially on the same page, but there are some communication breakdowns which are making this frustrating for everybody.
Yeah.
And I wish that weren't the case. And that's my 2 cents.
I'd like to just say, well said, Adrian, and also thank you all. I appreciate all of you, and I do believe that we're all here for the same reason. But we're on the front lines, and we need to be listened to. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Absolutely. Much thanks to our teachers, our EAs, everyone, our police that are in the throes of it all. I know it's a lot different being on the outside and getting to discuss this in the luxury of a meeting without, chairs being thrown and kids running down the hall or eloping. So thank you all for being there every day for our kiddos. I know it's tough. So, all right. Any other questions from the board or comments?
Yes. I have a totally unrelated question. Why do you use the word eloping? Where did that come from?
Well, we all just burst out laughing. That's a good one.
Well, they're running. They're not just wandering. They're running. They left. They've taken off and ran away.
So they're like runaway brides. They're not really running.
Oh, they skip, they climb, they crawl, they roll around.
They hide, they try to hide.
They've escaped.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that we created that term. I'm not sure.
Or is a psychology term. Like it's what you hear in a hospital.
Oh.
All right. Any others? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the hearing. And now it is time for board deliberation.
Board Chair Brick, do you want me to just frame the board's decision? So I think, as several of you have noted, this isn't the easiest kind of up or down type decision, but that is what it is. It is, are you going to affirm the level 2 decision? And I think you have to read the level 1 grievance decision and the level 2 grievance decision together, because level 1 addresses why the district believes there have not been contract violations. And then level 2 says, this is what we're going to do about it. So if you agree that the district has appropriately addressed the grievance, which means we don't believe that there's any contract violations, but to the extent there are some issues, this is how we'll address it, then you can affirm, well, essentially you would deny the level 3 grievance at this level. If you would like to grant the level 3 grievance at this level, then you would need to identify what you would do differently in essence, which would be really difficult at this because of the breadth of the issues. So it could be something like, well, I guess I'll leave it there and then just generally framing it and then answer any questions you have.
Jen Marie, thank you. She had a question of, are they supposed to log out? It is a public meeting. We are not in executive session, so you guys can stay. Or log out if you, I mean, whatever you'd like to do. But thank you for that question. Rebecca, so, we've got a lack of communication. We have some, it sounds like frustration on all sides, some slow moving forward. From a legal standpoint, and Michelle, this is probably a question for you too, contract violations. what are we looking at here? Because I mean, as a board, you know, that's, if we have contract violations to the letter of the law, then what are we seeing? Yes, no on all of them?
Michelle, you want me to start and then you can jump in.
Please.
So I think when you look at the level 1 response, it's in essence saying, hey, we believe we've complied with it, but we can do better. We've complied with the article and there have not been violations, which is frequently true with these type of grievances because it's general language. For example, this reference to equity among classrooms, there are different interpretations about how that can be met. So I think that's why you could make a finding that the contract has not been violated while also adopting the superintendent's recommendations for making it better generally.
Yeah, I would agree that, you know, making a plan to remedy or, you know, miscommunication is kind of the result anyway, right? I mean, even it, you know, that's always the goal moving forward is to kind of fix the relationships that have been damaged by miscommunication or just systems that are not working and responsive to students. And so that commitment remains no matter what.
Why do we go back to level 1? Why do we go back and accept that one and not the level 2? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. When I saw the level 2 response, what I was looking for was specifically stating whether or not a specific article had been violated or they were affirming the level 1 decision. And I didn't see that in the level 2 response. And that's why I think in this case, you have to read the two together because the level 1 is what addresses the specific contract violations. The level 2 addresses what remedies could address these, even if the district doesn't agree that there have been contract violations.
Diane, looks like you have a question or a comment. Oh,
I'm just trying to digest everything.
What's level 4? If we affirm level 1 grievance of our administrator, what would happen next if the union decides not to accept it?
The next step would be to go to arbitration, and that would be a decision for CBEA to make whether or not they would like to move this up to arbitration. And we don't know. We don't know what an arbitrator would do with a general grievance of this nature, where you have kind of broad language that they believe has been violated. I can't see an arbitrator saying, hey, district, you need to hire somebody. That's not something they would do. They would just either say there's been a violation or not. So I think if the remedy is asking for a specific hiring decision, that's generally not something that you would see anyway. So that needs to remain kind of a budget staffing decision for the board and the incoming superintendent.
okay. Arnie, did that help? Yep. Okay, Diane?
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Sorry. I meant the mute button.
Oh, so if we, as Arnie was saying, if we supported the level 3 grievance, does that mean the board feels like there have been violations or that we are agreeing that violations to the contract have occurred?
Yes. I think what you would have to do is identify which provisions, because there were multiple articles referenced. So you'd have to identify which provisions of the contract the board believes have been violated. And then you would have to collectively discuss what you think the remedy should be for that. So that's the more difficult position to take than just affirming the level 2. response.
And do we need to answer this tonight?
Yes, I think, Michelle, off the top of your head, the grievance response is pretty quick. Let me grab that.
I mean, my processing, the way, like, it is hard for me, just the way that I process information. Like, I have to look at that slideshow or, you know, presentation again. I have to look at this, you know, the contract. I have to, like, how my brain works and how I digest. I guess I should have done maybe more of that prior to the meeting. But it sounds like
you've got 7 days to render a decision.
David, what was your?
Well, I mean, I do sort of agree with Diane. I mean, these issues, if you look at them, they're really so deep in so many different areas that you know, it's really hard to discern, you know, at that level. You know, to me, you know, in a more broad way, you know, and this came up, I think, in previous contract negotiations about, you know, working conditions and what that really means, and behaviors and what kind of response is required by the district. And, you know, it's hard to hold one side of the entity responsible for managing something that is all of our jobs. So, you know, I guess I would say, did we somehow did the district completely not hold up its end of the bargain while everybody else was sort of doing its part? And I just don't see that it's that lopsided in that way. I mean, are there missteps? I would say certainly. Do I understand why some of those happen? Yeah. I mean, again, it boils down to, you could say, well, you know, the district needs to hire 3 EAs, and the district can say, well, we've tried. You know, we put the advertisement out. We've tried. Or, you know, that we had an EA, but they had to fill in for a teacher's absence. So is the district then not violating the condition of the contract because of that? I would say no. I think they're doing what they can, but they also have their own limitations. You know, the larger issues to me are really, you know, is the district collaborating well enough? And I mean, I think honestly the answer to that, from my brief experience to that, I would say the answer is clearly no. I mean, you know, not everybody's on the same page. Not everybody knows what the level 2 response is. So, I mean, the district has some fault here because they don't know enough about the process. And it may be because they're overstressed as well. I mean, I think that's, if I look at it honestly, you know, that way we had an interim and an acting superintendent. You know, we basically, at this point, we really probably effectively have no superintendent until July 1st. So, you know, but again, I can't say that I think that that's a contract violation related to those. I mean, it's a part of our system stress. So I don't know. I guess I don't really see this as something that I would rule in favor of the CBEA, but I also want to acknowledge clearly that, I mean, their points are, I think, valid too. I mean, they're you know, the fact that the district agreed to 2 staff meetings, and those have not occurred. And in fact, it sounds like not everybody in the district even knows that should have happened. So to me, that's, you know, those things are true. And you know, I would say I would strongly word to the district that those things need to be fixed. But honestly, I would want to do that with our new superintendent, who's not even here, because really it will be his job moving forward to ensure those things happen. What am I going to say to the departing superintendent? You know, so yeah, I'm blabbering now, so I'll stop.
David, I think you made a really good point, and actually, Rebecca, that's what you were saying, is that the board could support the level 2 response, or I guess it was it level 1 response, saying that they did not violate the contract, or they didn't feel like they violated the contract, but we're adhering to, we want those supports that were stated in the response to actually take place. And some of that is things like timely communication and they've got a plan, it sounds like, for moving forward, but there has been a number of either no communication or missteps, and it could be for all of the several reasons that David mentioned. We'll have had 4 superintendents in 1 year. There's been a lot happening, and really trying to keep the staff accountable, or even communicated to from the top. I mean, that's very difficult when we don't even have really a superintendent right now. So, Diane, you were going to say something?
Oh, no, I'm just kind of just agreeing with what David was saying, and just, I hear the frustration. I think a lot has to do with communication. I think that there were things in the works, but it just wasn't being expressed. I had expressed actually something to the superintendent as well, that the community is feeling frustrated with a lack of communication as well. And I hear it all the time. I'm sure other board members hear it all the time. And so I do think that has to be fixed. If we're working on something and maybe not delivering a promise, but just acknowledging that we are hearing them and that we are working on resources and putting plans in place to assist with this, because it does mean something to me. And I know it means something to everybody on this call. So I definitely think communication needs to happen.
Agreed. Rebecca, the board's next steps.
So the next step is for the board to vote on whether or not to, you can phrase it 2 ways. You can say you're denying the grievance at level 3, or you are granting the grievance at level 3. Or you could say we are affirming the level 1 and level 2 decisions on the grievance from the district. Or you can develop a subcommittee to look at, this in the next 7 days and provide a response that's more nuanced. Couple different options.
Thank you for that. A subcommittee seems like, it's so broad, and basically it's one of those things that you could weave either way. Equity that's a big thing. Everything needs to be equitable, right? When you're looking at each of the grievances, there's that piece of where you could see legitimacy for each side. Hey, this was violated, but was it really in the word? So there's a lot of broad things there. I would not support going into a subcommittee and trying to delve into that. I think that would be, just be a never-ending road that wouldn't really take us anywhere, and we need to have this done in 7 days. So either one of the responses, do we have any other questions, or is anyone ready to make a motion?
Can I ask Rebecca, what you said 2 options. One would be to deny the level 2 of the possible options would be deny the level 3 grievance, but then you also said you could also assert the district's response to level 1 and 2. Those are, can you tell me how those are different? What do they say that's different?
I think that if you were to affirm the district's level 1 and 2 decisions denying the grievance, it might be more clear, because the level 2 response doesn't specifically state that the district believes that the contract provisions were not violated. So it's primarily because of the way the level 2 grievance response was drafted that I'm suggesting you do something a little more nuanced.
And not level 3, because it again talks about violations of specific areas of the contract, correct?
Well, Well, it would be, it's saying the same thing. You're denying the grievance at level 3 and affirming the district's response at the level 1 and level 2. So it's just for the simplicity of the motion, whichever we'd like to do.
And because the other two grievances were not comprehensive, including the other one, you're suggesting they get included together.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I'm a little loath to do this because I also I don't, to do something black and white around this. It doesn't really fit very well for me. I mean, it's not a black and white situation, and we're given sort of a black and white decision, which, you know, to me leads to the ongoing problem of, you know, what do we do moving forward to address the district issue? So, but I would make a motion to deny the level 3 grievance and to support the district responses to the level 1 and level 2 grievances that had previously been submitted.
Thank you, David. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Addie. All right, any discussion?
Could we have a friendly amendment to your motion that says, and this decision will be communicated within 7 days to all parties and will include somehow a recitation of what our responses were at level 1 and 2? Is that automatically a part of it?
I'd say it's automatically a part of it. So I don't think that the board
Okay.
needs to add the friendly amendment.
But
I was going to suggest something similar, Addie.
I agree, guys. I had the same thing. I didn't like making the motion because it leaves out, I think, something. So I mean, and
It's all that communication piece.
Right. I mean, I think what the board can do and what it needs to do in the future, obviously, is support our new incoming superintendent to hold everyone accountable, to make sure that the plans that we've talked about, the response that has been written.
My phone just took that off and made it itself, so that's weird.
Arnie, mute yourself.
Anyway. I have to.
Uh-oh. Now he's muted. Okay. So I get that this is a hard decision, but it does sound like we all want the same things as a district, as a staff. I mean, everyone, the parents want our students to be successful and our classrooms to be managed and us to have enough staff, and we want the school therapist and everything. It sounds like we're working on that. We need to be better at communication, and us as a board, you know, again, we just need to support our new incoming superintendent to make sure that what has said happens, it actually happens, and communication is better. And I'm looking forward to that day. So any other discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Okay, we'll go through a vote. Adrian?
Aye.
Addie?
Aye.
Arnie?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Oh, there you are, Kevin. Kevin?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
I have a question. If the union were not to now file another grievance at level 4 right away and were to wait and see how things play out at the beginning of the year and the rest of this year, would they have to start again at level 1 to reinstitute the same complaint if they had it next year?
The next step is dictated by your contract. So they've got 10 days after they receive the level 3 decision to make the decision about moving into level 4. So if they can choose to do that, they can choose to wait and see and let that timeline elapse. And then if they do that, then yes, they would file it again, and it would need to be based upon new facts, so to speak, right? Like they see what is happening for the next school year and whether or not they believe the contract is still being violated.
Okay.
All right. Do we have any other questions or comments? I want to thank everyone for your time tonight. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and hopefully we can get there. And there's only a little bit left in the school year, but I know every day is precious. So everyone have a good night and take care, and meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.